The clinking of fine china and the low hum of conversation in the Gilded Plates restaurant felt like a mockery. Every laugh from a nearby table, every cheerful toast, was a stark contrast to the glacial silence that had settled over ours. For me, Chloe Henderson, this wasn't a family dinner. It was an execution. A $5,000 execution, to be precise. And I was both the condemned and the reluctant executioner. At 28, I'd built a life I was proud of as a senior archivist for the Boston Historical Society. My world was one of verifiable facts, preserved documents, and the quiet, enduring truth of history. I spent my days ensuring the stories of the past were told accurately and with respect. The irony that my own family's history was a fragile, carefully constructed fiction, orchestrated by my older sister Ashley, was a constant, aching bruise on my soul. It was a lie I had been forced to live inside for years. But tonight, the walls of that fiction were about to crumble. It had begun a week ago, with a phone call that shattered the peace of my quiet Sunday afternoon. I'd been curled up in my favorite armchair, a first edition of Tender is the Night in my lap, the scent of old paper and brewing tea my only companions. My mother's name flashed on my screen, and a familiar dread coiled in my stomach. Her voice, when I answered, was tight with a disappointment I knew was preemptively meant for me. Chloe, your father and I need to speak with you and Ashley. Now. I was placed on hold, and the digital silence was heavier than any shout. When my father's baritone and Ashley's dramatic sniffling joined the line, the stage was set. Chloe, Ashley began, her voice a masterclass in performative grief, a skill she'd honed over a lifetime of being the golden child. It's Grandma Eleanor's bracelet. The platinum Art Deco diamond one she wore to the opera opening night in 1952, and her vintage Cartier tank watch, the one from her 21st birthday. They're gone from my safe. I remember the floor tilting beneath me, the colorful spines of the books on my shelf blurring into a nauseating swirl. Those pieces weren't just jewelry. They were the crown jewels of our family's mythology, tangible proof of our lineage from elegance and grace. Grandma Eleanor, with her sharp wit that could slice through pretense, her love of Fitzgerald, and her unwavering belief in me, had been my only sanctuary in the cold, competitive landscape of our family. She saw my quiet, observant nature not as a social flaw, but as a sign of depth. You have old soul eyes, Chloe, she'd tell me, her own, still bright blue ones twinkling. You see what others miss. This accusation felt like a violent desecration of that sacred bond. I was the last one in your apartment when I watered your wretched fiddle-leaf fig tree, Ashley continued, laying the trap with surgical precision. I don't know what else to think. The subtext was clear. Who else could it be but you, the weird, bookish sister who doesn't fit in? Ashley, that's insane. I'd managed, my voice trembling with a potent cocktail of shock and cold fury. You know I wouldn't. You know I times couldn't. Grandma left me her first editions and her writing desk. That's all I ever wanted. Those books in that desk are worth more to me than any diamond. Why would I risk losing my relationship with all of you, as strained as it is over jewelry I've never even coveted? But my logic was a pebble against the tidal wave of their assumptions. My mother, Susan, 58, and forever concerned with the family's social veneer, fretted about what this says about our family's trust. My brother, Brad, 30 and a walking spreadsheet in a tailored suit, immediately started calculating the resale value on one Steedibs or at auction. And my father, Richard, 60, the consummate corporate fixer, tried to mediate with the emotional depth of a PowerPoint presentation. Chloe, let's not get emotional. We're just trying to establish the facts. The items are missing. You were the last one with access. The timeline is concerning, which led to this, the reconciliation dinner. My father had laid out the terms 2 days later with cold boardroom finality. Chloe, we need to draw a line under this unfortunate incident. To facilitate healing and demonstrate your commitment to moving past this lapse in judgment, you will host the family at the Gilded Plates this Friday. You will pay for the dinner. Consider it a tangible gesture of contrition, a way to rebuild the trust that has been damaged. A lapse in judgment. The phrase was a branding iron, searing the mark of thief onto my skin without ever saying the word. The money, while significant, was nothing compared to the coerced confession they were forcing me to sign with my credit card. They weren't just asking for my money. They were demanding my dignity. So here I sat, in a plush velvet booth that felt like a witness stand in a courtroom where I had already been convicted. Ashley, at 32, was the picture of wounded virtue, sipping her Chardonnay with a sigh that spoke volumes of her noble suffering. She was a social media influencer, her life a curated gallery of soft-focus perfection, and tonight, she was playing the role of the wronged heiress to perfection. Brad was already on his second glass of Macallan 18, his eyes the same cold blue as our father's, scanning the menu not for flavor, but for the price column. My mother kept nervously adjusting the double strand of real pearls at her neck, a past birthday gift from my father, her eyes, filled with a profound, rehearsed disappointment, darting between Ashley and me like a spectator at a particularly distressing tennis match. My father studied the wine list as if it were a quarterly earnings report, his jaw set in a firm, unyielding line. The meal was a torturous, 3-act pantomime of normalcy. They discussed Brad's latest multi-million-dollar real estate acquisition in the seaport, my mother's upcoming charity gala for the symphony, Ashley's new authentic and soulful collaboration with a sustainable yoga wear brand, a seamless, smug resumption of the Henderson family brand, from which I was now officially suspended. I was a ghost at the table, a problem to be managed and monetized. I picked at my heirloom tomato and burrata salad, each creamy, cool bite like ash in my mouth. Every light, tinkling laugh from Ashley was a shard of glass grinding under my skin. I watched their hands, my father's firm grip on his steak knife, my mother's fluttering gestures, Brad's tapping fingers, and felt a universe away from these people who shared my DNA. My mind drifted back to Grandma Eleanor's library, a room these people rarely entered. The smell of lemon polish and old leather, her voice, soft but firm. Chloe, the world is full of people who will try to write your story for you. Don't you let them. You hold the pen. I had clutched that advice like a lifeline for years, but tonight, I felt the pen being wrested from my grasp. The main courses came and went. I barely tasted my halibut. The conversation lurched to Ashley's upcoming wedding planning, a topic that usually sent her into paroxysms of self-absorption. And we've finalized the floral arrangements, she announced, her voice regaining some of its usual entitled sparkle. Peonies and gardenias. Of course. Nothing too common. She glanced at me. You'll still be a bridesmaid, won't you, Chloe? We'll just have to keep an eye on the jewelry box beforehand. She let out a little laugh, a sound like breaking crystal. The table went quiet for a beat too long. My mother offered a strained smile. Ashley, darling, that's not funny. But it's true, Brad said, not looking up from his phone where he was doubtless checking stock prices. We have to be practical. That was the moment the last vestige of hope I'd been clinging to withered and died. Practical. As if I were a business risk to be mitigated. Finally, the dessert menus were placed on the table and pointedly ignored. The air grew thick with anticipation. The moment of my financial and emotional flogging had arrived. My father gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod, the CEO signing off on a necessary but unpleasant expense. The waiter, a young man with a professionally neutral expression, glided over and presented the black leather folio to the center of the table, a dark verdict on fine linen. With a stillness I didn't know I possessed, a calm that felt like it came from somewhere deep in the earth, I reached out, took it, and placed my Black American Express card on the tray without a word. The plastic felt cold and final. As the waiter retreated, Ashley leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with a malice she could no longer contain. She couldn't resist the final vicious twist of the knife. It's just so tragic, you know, she announced to the table, her gaze skimming over me as if I were a stain. It's not even about the monetary value, really. It's about the legacy. Grandma Eleanor's legacy. All that history, that elegance. To think that someone in this very family would just violate that trust? It's a sickness, really. I said nothing. I simply looked at her, my face a placid, unreadable mask. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my ice water, the cold a shocking, clarifying anchor in the storm of my fury. Inside, my heart was a war drum, pounding a rhythm of long-suppressed rage. Just a little longer, I told myself. The truth has its own timetable. The waiter returned. The walk from the kitchen door to our table felt like it took an hour. He handed me the folio. I took my card, and with a hand that did not shake, I signed my name on the receipt for $5,500. 27. The scratch of the pen was the only sound. The paper felt like a legal document admitting to a crime I didn't commit, the final surrender of my character. And then, it happened. As I placed the pen down with a soft, definitive click, the restaurant's gentle ambient jazz music, a harmless piano trio cut off abruptly. A soft electric crackle emanated from the discreet speakers nestled in the ceiling coffers. A few diners at nearby tables glanced up, mildly annoyed at the technical glitch. Then, a voice, crystal clear and unmistakably Ashley's, filled the hushed, elegant space. It was laced with a conspiratorial, giddy laugh that was utterly foreign to the persona she presented to the world. Oh my God, you should have seen their faces, Mark. They totally bought it. My mother actually cried. Real tears. I should win an Oscar. My family froze as one, a tableau of dawning horror. Brad's whiskey glass halted halfway to his lips, the amber liquid sloshing precariously. My mother's hand flew to her pearls, her knuckles white, her face draining of all color. My father's head snapped up from his phone, his corporate calm utterly shattered, his eyes wide with a confusion that was rapidly curdling into understanding. A male voice. Mark, Ashley's chronically unemployed, trust fund fiancé responded. The insurance payout is really that high? Higher. Ashley's voice purred from the speakers, now dripping with naked avarice. The bracelet alone is insured for $80,000. I told you, my grandma was loaded. The plan is perfect. I find them in a week, after the check clears. My stupid sister Chloe is the perfect patsy. She's so quiet and bookish, everyone totally believes she's the unhinged, jealous type. She doesn't even have to do anything. Just existing is enough to make her look guilty. The blood drained from Ashley's face, leaving her a stark, terrified mask of white against the dark velvet booth. She looked like a ghost seeing its own corpse. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The recording continued, merciless in its clarity. But your own sister, won't she fight it? Mark asked, a sliver of doubt in his voice. Ashley's laugh that came through the speakers was a cruel, brittle thing. And say what? My family has already tried and convicted her in the court of public opinion. This apology dinner tonight is the final nail in her coffin. She's literally paying for the privilege of being framed. It's almost poetic, don't you think? God, I'm brilliant. A collective, sharp gasp rippled through the surrounding tables, followed by a dead, rapt silence. All eyes were now locked on our booth. Whispers began to snake through the room, faces turning away in disgust or staring with unashamed gloat. I slowly, deliberately placed my linen napkin on the table. The movement was calm, filled with a terrifying, absolute finality. I stood up, my chair making no sound on the thick carpet. I looked at my parents first, my mother, her face a grotesque canvas of dawning horror, shame, and a flicker of devastating realization. My father, his features rigid with a fury I knew was for Ashley. But it was too late, far too late for his anger to matter. I looked at Brad, who was staring at Ashley with a new, calculating disgust, no doubt mentally subtracting her from his future investment opportunities and weighing the social collateral of this very public scandal. Finally, I let my gaze rest on Ashley. Her eyes were wide, pleading, desperate. They were begging me to make it stop, to somehow undo this. In that moment, she looked like the little girl who used to steal my toys. But the stakes were no longer a plastic doll. I reached into the leather satchel at my feet, the one that held my work, my real life, my truth. I pulled out a small, worn, first edition copy of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Tucked inside its fragile pages was a simple, tarnished silver thimble. I placed the thimble gently on the pristine white tablecloth in front of my empty plate. It looked small and humble amidst the glittering crystal and polished silver. "This," I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the dead silence of the restaurant like a scalpel, "is the only heirloom I ever wanted. The one Grandma Eleanor used while she taught me to mend the torn page of this very book when I was 10. I was crying, thinking I'd ruined it. She sat with me for 2 hours, showing me how to fix it. She said, "Chloe, some things are too valuable to throw away. They just need a careful hand and a patient heart to restore them. You can have the diamonds, Ashley. I never needed them to remember who loved me for exactly who I am." I did not look at them again. I turned and walked away from the table, my steps even and sure. I didn't look back at the ruins of my family, at the smoldering wreckage of their reputations. The weight of the $5,000 bill felt lighter than a feather. The real price, the cost of their trust, their respect, and their permanent place in my life, had just been paid in full by everyone I left behind in that booth. As the heavy oak door of the gilded plates swung shut behind me, sealing away their shame and their stunned silence, I took a deep, cleansing breath of the cool night air. It tasted of freedom. For the first time in my life, I was utterly free of the Henderson family narrative. The pen was back in my hand. I allowed myself a small, private smile as I walked towards the subway, the city lights blurring into a beautiful, indifferent tapestry. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that back in the restaurant, the recording might have ended, but the sound of their perfect, gilded world shattering into a million irreparable pieces was the sweetest music I would ever hear. And the best part? The lawsuit from the insurance company was going to be even more brutal. But that was a story for another day. My story.